He didn't slam a podium, he didn't shout, but when Schumer rose on the Senate floor that day, everything in the chamber shifted. Cameras leaned in, aides stopped scribbling, and even casual conversation died down. He said 3 words that changed the room. Release the files. Simple, direct, explosive. Because those files mean more than paper and ink, they mean names, connections, and a chance to finally see how deep a network of secrecy really went. For years the story lived in whispers, flight logs, private islands, late-night meetings that never made it into any official report. People in power promised transparency. Senators gave speeches. Committees issued statements. But promises aren't the same as action.
I introduced a very simple amendment that directs the Attorney General to release the Epstein files. It's the same amendment as the one working its way in the House, and the same one that my good friend from Oregon, who just spoke on another issue, has been so active in championing. As soon as today, Republicans have a chance to take a step further in releasing the files. The same files that for years they have said they wanted released. If Republicans vote no, they'll be saying to the American people, you should not see the Epstein files. I ask my Republican colleagues, after all those years you spent calling for accountability, for transparency, for getting to the bottom of these awful crimes, why won't you vote yes? Let me remind my colleagues of the things they have said for themselves on the Epstein issue. After all, Leader McConnell said, quote, there's no question the accusations against Epstein are horrendous, and I think it's good news that they're being pursued further. That's what McConnell said. Whatever happened to that? The current majority leader, Senator Thune, said less than 2 months ago, yes, he said, we're all interested in making sure that justice is served and there is full disclosure and transparency. And what about Senator Blackburn, who said it's imperative we figure out who was involved with Jeffrey Epstein? That's the only way we're going to break apart this $150 billion a year human trafficking, sex trafficking ring. Or Senator Johnson, who said, the alleged victims are entitled to know what happened. The American people are entitled to know what happened. Well, I could not agree more with all of them. To my Republican colleagues, I say, to every senator, I say, this is your chance now. You can vote right now to give transparency to the American people and reveal the files, or you can vote to hide the very files you've claimed to desperately want released for years. The choice lies with our Republican colleagues today. If Republicans vote no, they'll be saying the American people should not see the Epstein files. I say to my Republican colleagues again, if you vote no, I say to every senator, if you vote no, you'll be saying the American people should not see the Epstein files, plain and simple. The American people deserve transparency. The American people are sick of Donald Trump's endless string of pathological lies and cover-ups when it comes to the Epstein files. Trump lied when he promised he'd release the Epstein files. Trump lied when he said the FBI never told him if his name was mentioned in the files. Trump lied when he said he never wrote that gross, salacious letter to Epstein on his 50th birthday. And he lied last week when he called the whole thing nothing but a Democratic hoax. It's not a hoax, it's real, and Americans want to get to the bottom of it. Americans want transparency. From Trump, we're hearing one brazen lie after the other. From Trump, we're hearing a massive cover-up. Americans are wondering, what the heck is Donald Trump hiding? Well, we can take back that veil. We can release those files, take a big step to releasing those files by voting yes on my amendment. It's clear Donald Trump can't be trusted to tell the truth to the American people, so it should be up to the Senate to do so. The Senate must force the issue. And I say to my Republican friends, as long as you keep voting no, America's going to lose trust in government and lose trust in you. I yield the floor. And note the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Schumer's amendment turned words into a real test, forced the Attorney General to make all Epstein-related records public, no selective leaks, no friendly edits. And the person in charge of that decision, Attorney General Pam Bondi. Schumer didn't frame it as politics. He framed it as a responsibility to survivors, to democracy, and to the basic idea that nobody should be above scrutiny. If you vote no, he said, you're voting to keep the American people in the dark. That was the moment the spectacle stopped being performative and became moral. Because when leaders are asked to choose between their public promises and their private comfort, the choice tells you everything. What makes this so uncomfortable is history. Senators who spent years calling for disclosure suddenly seemed hesitant. Quotes from the record came back to haunt them. We need transparency, they had said. Release the files, they had demanded. But words said when the cameras are rolling are cheap if you're not willing to back them up when it counts. Schumer read those lines back to the chamber with calm precision, and you could see the movement shift, not toward courage, but toward counsel and caution. Why the change? Because those files are dangerous in a way rhetoric isn't. They don't make abstract accusations, they map relationships. The flight logs, emails, bank records, these are the kind of documents that turn rumors into patterns. Patterns reveal how power was protected, who benefited, and who looked the other way. And that's where Pam Bondi's role moves from background to center stage. As Attorney General, she controls whether those documents stay sealed or go public. She's the gatekeeper. Bondi has said publicly that the department is working through documents that victim identities and sensitive information must be protected. Those are not unreasonable concerns. Redactions for privacy are standard, but there's a difference between careful redaction and slow-walking transparency. Reports suggested that large troves of documents existed beyond what had been shared, and Schumer's amendment was a direct response. Make everything public, explain redactions, and let the American people see the result. No more safe PR releases that change the subject. And so the argument stopped being theoretical. It became immediate. Schumer asked his colleagues to put words into action. You told people you wanted transparency, he said. Here's your test. The line landed. Because for the survivors and investigators who'd been waiting years, this wasn't political theater, it was a chance for real accountability. Could the Senate do what had been promised so many times before, or would the institutional instinct to protect itself win out again? You could feel the moral gravity in the chamber. It's one thing to talk about accountability when no one's name is at risk. It's another to authorize access to the documents that might implicate powerful people, donors, allies. And that discomfort is why the amendment faced procedural pushes, private phone calls, and the kind of hesitation that looks like fear when you read it closely. Some senators talked about process, some raised concerns about privacy. Few addressed the core question, if there is nothing to hide, why hide it? Outside the Capitol, people followed every line. Reporters pieced together what little had been released previously. Heavily redacted memos, fragments of logs, and a handful of documents that didn't move the needle. Advocates demanded full disclosure. Survivors said they wanted the truth. And the public, tired of promises and crumbs, began to understand the real stakes. Transparency here would not only reveal alleged misconduct, it would show how institutions reacted when such allegations touched their most connected members. Schumer's message reached beyond the walls of Congress. He framed the vote as a test of whether the government still belongs to the people or to those with influence. Vote for sunlight, he said. Vote for the survivors. And because the Attorney General is the person who can physically release the material, Pam Bondi found herself in an uncomfortable spotlight. Questions shifted. Was the DOJ ready to comply? Would it be a thorough, honest release, or another partial drop designed to deflate public pressure? Bondi has defended measured releases. She's argued that victim privacy and national security need protection. Those are real issues. But there were also reports, credible enough to be discussed on the floor, that indicated the department had more material than what had been disclosed. That's why Schumer's proposal wasn't a rhetorical flourish, it was a demand for transparency with a timeline. Not months of review, a defined window to publish. Let the public see, then litigate redactions if necessary. When you step back, you realize why this matters beyond the immediate controversy. The Epstein story is painful because it's about crimes done to vulnerable people and the unsettling ease with which the wealthy evade full exposure. The real test of a democracy is whether it enforces its rules equally. When documents stay hidden, systems remain unaccountable. When truth is parceled out in press releases, the public gets a narrative shaped by power, not one revealed by evidence. That's what Schumer was trying to stop. He knew this would be a hard sell. But his strategy was precise. He stripped the problem of drama and left only the choice: transparency now or the continued sheltering of secrets. That's why he used his floor time not to rant but to force the issue into the record. Because when the record changes, so does political accountability. When a senator votes against releasing files, it's something voters can point to. Nobody can later claim they never had the chance, and that's the power of public pressure. Politicians respond more to phones and headlines than to private conscience. Schumer put the choice in public view deliberately. He knew that if the public paid attention, the calculus changes. A vote against disclosure becomes not a prudent legal stance but an electoral vulnerability. That's how transparency gets enforced, not by the virtue of leaders but by the vigilance of citizens. Meanwhile, the arguments for delay are familiar: privacy, classification, the risk of harming ongoing investigations. Those are valid protections on the surface. But build a pattern of delay and watch opacity become the rule. The question becomes who benefits from delay, who uses process as cover. When that question is asked, institutions lose their comfortable deniability, and that's exactly what Schumer wanted to expose. Some will say this is partisan politics dressed as moral outrage. Others will insist it's the only way the truth comes out when the powerful would prefer it not to. Either way, the move forced the debate to a new level. It made the Senate choose between its public rhetoric and its private calculations. It turned promises into votes. And above all, it made the Attorney General's discretion a thing to be tested in daylight. For survivors and advocates, the stakes were straightforward. They wanted to see whether the system would finally treat their testimony with the weight it deserves. For the public, the stakes were institutional: would rule of law prevail when it was inconvenient? For politicians, it was a moment of choice, one that would be remembered long after the headlines fade. Schumer made that choice unavoidable. So what happens next? The amendment forces a timeline. It demands publication with clear rules for redaction and oversight. It makes the Attorney General's decisions accountable, not just to legal norms but to public scrutiny. And if the release happens, it will ripple far beyond the immediate names and pages. It will create precedent: sealed files can be reopened, protected narratives can be challenged, and other hidden records could be reassessed. That possibility scares people in power, because it asks a simple, brutal question: do we govern in full view or behind closed doors? If the answer is the latter, trust erodes. If the answer tilts toward sunlight, institutions have to adapt. They have to own up, make reforms, and accept that transparency sometimes means uncomfortable revelations. That's not chaos, that's accountability. Schumer's move was not just a political maneuver, it was a test of whether the country still believes in equal application of the law. Whether you agree with the method or not, the moral clarity is hard to ignore. He made it clear who had said what in public and what they were asked to do in private. He placed the decision where it should be, in the open, visible to voters, activists, and history. And that's where you come in. This kind of pressure only works when people notice. When viewers share, comment, and demand answers, the political risk for hiding the truth increases. Sunlight works. It doesn't always feel tidy, and sometimes it reveals ugly things. But it also offers the chance to rebuild trust, to hold institutions accountable, and to give survivors a clearer path to justice. So don't look away. Watch how senators vote. See who leans toward openness and who shields secrecy behind process. The names will matter. The votes will matter. And over time, the pattern will tell you whether promises of accountability were real or simply words made for cameras. If you care about transparency and justice, hit like, subscribe, and share this video so more people can see what's at stake. Keep asking questions, keep demanding the files be released, and keep the pressure on until sunlight wins.